A very young Kenny Rogers with the first edition. Amazing that that song has lasted for a long, long time. Okay, let me get to this. Is the good doctor with us, Dr.
Yes, sir.
Glenn Boyce? Is he? Okay, good morning, sir. How are you?
This is Dr. Glenn Boyce, Chancellor of the University of Mississippi, Paul, and you're listening to the Gallo Radio Show on SuperTalk.
Well, I appreciate that, sir.
With you again.
Appreciate that so very, very much. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, Paul. How are you? It's good to be with you.
Doing good. There are so many things to talk about. First of all, let's just talk about the spring semester because it's upon us and enrollment, and how do we look there as far as Ole Miss is concerned?
Enrollment's fantastic. We're up almost 8% this spring over last spring, and the numbers for the freshman class coming up this fall are growing and incredible. They're going to be significantly larger than last year, and of course, we've set records every single year. So enrollment is moving along fantastic. We're excited about it. Excited about the future here.
You know, when you start looking, and I was just thinking about this, you start looking at some of the narratives, and we were talking about some bills. There's a bill from Senator Polk about closing 3 universities, and I just thought if you're with IHL and you're thinking about retirement, if that landed in their lap, it would be a good time to retire. You talking about a hot potato, but I mean that conversation is going on across the country. And your thoughts about that with your background and your expertise in that?
Yeah, my thoughts about that, Paul, is, that takes an awful lot of research. There's an awful lot of data that needs to come into it. But, also, Paul, there's questions that have to be answered. You have to ask yourself, what are you looking for out of higher education in our state? What are the outcomes, that you're looking for? And you also have to ask yourself, you really have to do a strong study on ROI and what is your return by having our universities located where they are and the economic impact they make throughout their communities. And what about the answer to labor force? Because we are creating, and a lot of people don't like to term it this way sometimes in a higher education world, but we are creating the labor force for the state of Mississippi. And if you start to, in any way, possibly reduce that labor force with the challenges in growing our economy, that's an incredible negative. And so, yes, but there's an awful lot of research and an awful lot of discussion and conversation that must go into place in order to make any of those kind of decisions. And while other states have done a lot of work in this area, there's no question about it. It requires time and real expertise in order to determine whether this is even a good thing for Mississippi.
How do you look at that enrollment when you're talking about up 8%, and you also look at the tuition rates are up also? How is that being mitigated by the universities to continue? Some of them continue to grow.
Yeah, there's no question, Paul. And let me just say this to your audience. We all have a lot of concerns about the enrollment cliff that has arrived. And there's no question in Mississippi, our enrollment cliff has arrived. And the loss of enrollment and what's predicted to happen over the next 7 to 8 years. This isn't anything that is going to happen and then all of a sudden it's going to be, hey, we're back to business as usual with growing enrollments in our high school classes. I'll give you a quick example. In 17-18 in Mississippi, there was about 35,000, and there was 35,000 graduates. By 2022, there's 32,681. Suddenly, we've got a loss of, several thousand graduates, and that's going to, the prediction is that'll decline. There's some studies that have it from 2012 to 2019, and this goes back a little way, so it's a little bit old information, that Mississippi is going to lose between 19 to 24% of its high school graduates. And that's not different than a lot of states now. Please understand that. Tennessee's 23, Illinois is 19, Alabama's 20. I mean, this is something that's happening all across the nation, but it's really beginning to affect the Southeast. And here's a bigger figure, Paul, that really does matter deeply. And this is something I'm proud of for Mississippi and what we've done throughout the years. But the other piece that matters is those that actually choose to go to post-secondary education. And keep in mind, not every student wants to go to college. And in Mississippi, we've had a pretty strong going to college rate for our seniors, anywhere in the last 3 years from 67%, 64, 63. But the numbers have started to decline as that percentage declines. And in 2022, we had 20,883 students go to higher ed,
Yeah.
some type of post-secondary, community college, universities. And Paul, at the end of the day, that's not enough students for the number of community colleges, universities, private, public, and the universities who are all reaching into Mississippi, trying to take our best and brightest out of the state on us.
It is a conundrum. The Chancellor of the University of Mississippi, it's Dr. Glenn Boyce. And as you said, the high schools are beginning to see this also. When we start giving figures now, talking about the number of students, what the cost is per student, it's $10,000 to $11,000 per student, and we have every single year less students that we are handling in public schools across our state. And post-pandemic, it took a pretty good hit. And you got to wonder where some of those students went. And most people say homeschooling, but not sure about that. What does it look like in the future, though, when you start talking about this? Because you guys are in marketing like everybody else, and you've got to get your story out there. Where now with the jobs that are coming through, the data processing plant, the steel, aluminum, meal, automobile manufacturer, tire manufacturers, Amazon, et cetera, the competition for jobs out of high school and training, is there some type of workforce a program that would include IHL with that whole scheme of it too? In other words, for someone who not only wants to get into that business, but wants to sooner or later be a business owner or an executive within that company.
Well, I think the importance of that is, and all my years in community colleges were such a blessing too to help me understand all of this big picture. Mm-hmm. I think when you're talking about developing a complete labor community for the state of Mississippi, all these pieces have to fit together almost like a strong jigsaw puzzle. And so you have to have the right type of programmings in higher education in order for students to be able to get jobs within your own state, to build businesses and companies within your own state, to be entrepreneurs. Because I don't know, Paul, if there's ever been a generation who want to be entrepreneurs as much as this generation of students.
Yeah.
It's amazing how many students want to open up their own companies and how to want to take and make a difference in the world and run their businesses. Day in and day out. And we have at this university, we have an amazing entrepreneurial program and emphasis on it throughout our business school and other programs. So we're creating the next generation of entrepreneurs, but we need them to stay home. So in turn, we need to make sure that our programming, our academic programming, is just exactly what's needed for the future and how it compares to the companies who we're recruiting coming in. And it's all one picture. And I want to say one last thing on this, Paul, that's important. That's why it's so important for the university system to be involved in the economic development and growth of the state. We have got to be a major player. The community colleges are major players in workforce training for the state and do a wonderful job. We have to be involved at a different level in the economic development and the growth of the state, and we have to be committed to it as universities. And so at our university, we are investigating this issue interestingly enough, right now in a very, very intense way to make sure that we send a message, hey, if there's anything that we can do across the state to help businesses grow, to help bring in new businesses and companies, we stand ready and we're organized to do that.
Most important, certainly in the healthcare field too, because we need more doctors and nurses, et cetera, et cetera. How has AI played into it as far as the research and everything else? And AI even plays into the legal as far as a lawyer is concerned, because there's a lot of talk about what AI is doing there. So has that played into quite a few conversations or meetings that you guys have had?
It does, Paul. It plays into it a lot because, as you would probably suspect, our students are far ahead of us a lot of times with AI.
Yes,
and
yes.
They stay ahead of us with technology, period. So, for us to catch up on what they're doing and what they're looking at and how they're using AI is very, very important to our faculty. It's important to us as a university. And, everything's going to have a touch and a piece of AI very, very soon. There's no question about it. It's exploded quickly in our world, but it will even take on new advances probably as fast as you and I are talking here. And I'll tell you one thing that's fascinating with us is we started a new center, National Center for Narrative Intelligence, which is really an amazing center. and we're working with a company called Edge Theory. And this national center works with AI exclusively, and it's a problem-solving center. We're working closely with the Department of Defense and other areas in the area of narrative intelligence.
How about that?
And what's really, really important is that two of our center leaders are Wes Jennings and Andrea Hickerson in journalism, and we're trying to look for misinformation throughout the narrative open source world.
We've got a break. It's going to be because I also want to ask you about the NIL. I think you guys had a meeting on Friday that dealt with some of this and so much going on there, and also about maybe anything new that's going to happen for fall and spring on campus. Back with more coming up next. Chancellor at Ole Miss, Glenn Boyce, and we were talking about a multitude of different things here. When you look at the facilities itself coming up, spring, baseball, football this fall, anything new to report? A lot of stuff's going on there. Any rules, regulations, new blockades, more parking, etc.?
Well, on campus, it's the normal busy spring, Paul. The weather's starting great. People are coming out by the thousands. We're incredibly excited about what's going on. And our spring athletic programs are really doing a good job here early in the year, and our basketball teams are finishing up very, very strong. So we're excited about what's going on there. No real new policies and issues of that nature. However, as you well know, the changing landscape of college athletics is truly incredible. It's like nothing most of us have ever seen in our lifetimes. Yeah.
You had three experts. I'd love to have been at this one in sports law. It happened on Friday of last week, talking about the future of college athletics at the University of Mississippi School of Law's, I think it was the 14th annual Mississippi Sports Law Review Symposium. And you had three guys there that were talking about a multitude of different things. And I'm sure the NIL deal and the Tennessee lawsuit or the Tennessee violations were brought up, but any comment on that?
Well, I won't make any comment on that particular, but I would say this, that with the way NIL and collectives are moving along and so on, and the way that this injunction's put into place, it's pretty much, once again, opened up the issues of whether or not you're going to be able to compete financially for players rather than just facilities for the future. And we're headed to a point where there's so much chaos right now in college athletics that to find clarity in it, you've got the NCAA working on it. You've got the SEC working on it within our own conference. You've got the SEC and the Big Ten collaborating together, trying to work on it as closely as they can to try to make a look at it and what it's going to look like for the future. And then you've just got the laws and the courtroom looking at it, and you've got Congress looking at it. I think that probably describes the type of chaos that it's all going on right now. Yeah. And there's no set resolution to any of it with all these conversations taking place.
I think, well, I mentioned a little bit earlier, just kind of amazed, and I think a lot of us are when we got into this saying, I can't believe they're going to do this. And then when you start looking at nobody's got a formula or standardized or anything else, it's kind of like building the world's tallest skyscraper without a blueprint. And we were all amazed that this was happening. And now you can see that maybe we should have a blueprint on this one, and maybe Congress should have acted first. But I'm not sure if there's any appetite in Congress to take this up anytime soon.
Yeah, of course, honestly and candidly, I went up to Washington several months ago to meet with our congressman, and the first thing I did was apologize, Paul, because I don't feel like that it's Congress's responsibility, to enforce and to run college athletics. We've always been able to do it ourselves. And Paul, the truth of the matter is, though, it's gotten so complex, and because of the changing issues and the way everything's moving, are these athletes and our young ladies and young men going to be employees in the future and so on? With all that's being asked of the court system right now, there's no question that Congress will have to act at some point if it's going to help us put a model in place that works for the future of college athletics.
Well, I just thought of an upside on it. I just thought this. Maybe that would help PERS.
There's always an upside to everything, Paul. I promise.
Yeah, but if they're going to become university employees at the end of the day, I'm not sure if they'll graduate after that, but maybe that would be the salvation for PERS. And if you got to think out of the box that much, we do have a problem. Any final thoughts here about anything else going on at Ole Miss? And I know there's so much, man. What a football! I haven't had you on since the football season. What a year!
It was a fantastic year, and we just our athletes did an amazing job. Coaching staff was incredible. Fan base was beyond belief. Our students were phenomenal. Yeah, and the excitement that we drew. And the wonderful thing was to go to the Peach Bowl and take on one of the largest universities in America and have the kind of crowd we had and the kind of enthusiasm. And I think we really sent a message across the United States as to what this university is all about, what Ole Miss is all about, not just on the playing field, but in those stands with our fans, our alumni base, and everybody else that makes up this great university. The last thing I'd say to you real quick, like Paul, is that things are moving quickly. We've got our new STEM building, which is 202,000 square feet. It's amazing. Got a new data center coming. Got a new UMMC's bringing the traditional BSN nursing program to Oxford. We're very excited about that. Thankful for them expanding that program up here. We got new arts expansion, and one of the things that's really neat is we're developing and getting ready to start building an early learning center. It'll be for autistic, special needs children, behavior amongst other things. But that term behavioral needs is very, very important in today's world, and we're already testing for that. And we're excited about what that center could become to not just to everybody in not just North Mississippi, but across the state.
Dr. Glenn Boyce, Chancellor at the University of Mississippi. Don't be a stranger, sir. Anytime you need us, give us a call. Thank you for taking some time.
Thank you so much, Paul.